Could you sacrifice yourself for a cause you feel deeply about? Could you stare at the black void of inevitability with determination and resolve? The following video is going to touch on the heavy topic of unaliving. On the 15th of September 1987, in front of Nalla Kandaswamy Temple in the northern province of so-called Sri Lanka, Lieutenant Colonel Dileepan, born Rasaya Parthipan, started a hunger strike to protest the genocidal Sri Lankan and Indian government's actions against Elam Tamils on the island. Dileepan Anna was a cadre of the LTTE, the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Elam, and his hunger strike was done to voice several demands in consensus with the Elam Tamil population. They demanded the Sri Lankan government withdraw all Sinhalese army camps from Tamil areas, suspend all rehabilitation work until the formation of an interim Tamil government for the Tamil homelands, stop the continuing Sinhala colonisation in the Tamil homeland, halt the setting up of Sinhala-manned police stations in Tamil areas, and release all detainees held under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. Dileepan Anna refused food and water for 12 days, hoping that these demands for human dignity and liberty would be met, but he fasted unto death. Since then, he's been hailed as a hero for the cause of Tamil liberation. Since time immemorial and much recently, the idea of unaliving oneself in protest, self-martyrdom, is all over international media and discourse. Two happened recently in December and February, self-immolating in so-called Atlanta and Washington, respectively. I deeply respect and mourn the two people who have done this in the so-called United States in solidarity with the ongoing genocide against Palestinians. To have this searing pain of empathy, which compels you to think of the most impacted way you can use your body to fight against systems of oppression, it's a feeling I understand really, really well. Your complicity is poison in your veins, and you want to shock apathetic masses into action and change minds. You just want people to listen. But I can't help but feel incredibly frustrated for a couple of reasons, which I'll list in brief and then speak on as a whole. The first is that too much of the world is centering white Americans over Palestinians. That's always been the case, I guess. Second, there needs to be demands, ideally with a link to an organisation. Third, a winnable and specific target. And fourthly, why this form of protest was chosen specifically. While I understand how many Palestinians are moved by these sacrifices, allies that are willing to lay down their lives are allies. We are seeing white supremacy in action when so much focus is heaped on the noble but relatively ineffectual protest of sacrifice that these two made. It is true that being in the heart of empire makes this form of protest significant, but in order to be effective as possible, it must have other elements. Without clear demands and links to an organisation, you give capitalist media more room to paint the martyr as mentally unstable, illogical, and irrational. The American government as a whole is not a winnable target, but then again, some would say the Dileepan Anna did not have one either. In the words of Kwame Ture, speaking on MLK, he said, "Dr. King's policy was, if you are to be non-violent, if you suffer, your opponent will see your suffering and he will be moved to change his heart. That's very good." He only made one fallacious assumption. In order for non-violence to work, your opponent must have a conscience. The United States has none. Crime Thing did a good piece on the person who sacrificed themselves very recently in Washington, and they quote another article that they wrote in saying, "No one should have any illusions about how governments view the sanctity of life in the age of COVID-19, when the United States government can countenance the deaths of 1 million people without blushing, while the Russian government explicitly employs convicts as cannon fodder. The newly elected fascist politicians who govern Italy, and I would add every state currently on earth, have no scruples about consigning whole populations to death, let alone permitting a single anarchist to die." This is what the upholders of oppression want. They want us to feel that self-martyrdom is the only path left available and the best one. They want one less enemy. They want the media pathologizing martyrs and drawing attention away from the horrors being protested. They don't want these principled people with pain in their hearts to actually organize. And I know that some people that have done this have been organizing, but it speaks to I guess, the ineffectiveness of where they saw that organization heading is that they were kind of stuck on just that first step of service provision, which is really, really difficult for someone who wants to make a big change in the world. It's really, really hard to double as part of the government. And obviously, as people who align with anarchism, you want your means and ends to be aligned with some kind of prefiguration, the world that you want to create. However, that needs to be done in conjunction with an organization. We can't just be autonomous people hoping that our specific actions that we work on in private will ignite the flames of everybody else and actually create the work and inspire them. The unfortunate thing is that through people, these martyrs that we have, we lose their experience and their teachings. There's only so much that their death can teach us, but there's so much more that their life could bring if they continue to study and if they continue to teach others. Because organizing, having been someone that's only done it for a small amount of time, it's hard. It's really, really hard. It's the hardest thing. And it can seem like a cop-out because the impacts are hard to measure and it takes sustained efforts, consistent planning, collaboration, learning, and praxis. So my advice is feel all the negative feelings that come with watching genocide in action in crystal clear footage, but do not despair. That is not what the movement needs. And do not choose the path of the void carelessly without a strategy of comrades behind it. Do not let anybody pressure you into thinking that that choice is one to be made lightly and that it will instantly have impact, because it doesn't always, and people will, and capitalist media in general, will skew that, as bastardize that as much as they can. They will defame you and spit on your memory in every way I can. They will try and discredit you in any way possible. If you work in an industry of complicity, you may be best placed to stay there and do everything you can to bring this complicity to light. We all know how many prominent whistleblowers like Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, and Chelsea Manning have been brutalized and imprisoned. But the fact that they are still living means that what they exposed will be continuously kept aflame. They keep spreading it. They get interviewed. They're consistently talked about. There's always going to be a relitigation of what they have done through different machinations of the state, and they are suffering. Assange is suffering right now. Snowden seems to be in relative safety, but Chelsea was definitely abused a lot and imprisoned in heinous conditions, and all of them brought to light really, really important things about the US empire. Julian Assange brought to light many things about the genocide of Sri Lankan Empire, many of the genocidal crimes, the war crimes, the child prostitution that they were engaged in, the mass sexual assaults, the general corruption involved, the horrendous, horrendous crimes. Now it's said that, I guess I'll use his name now, so Aaron Bushnell, that he worked in the Air Force and that he possibly saw things that made him think twice, or that made him think better about what he was doing. And he was also engaged with leftist media online. And actually seem to support people on Patreon and stuff. And I feel like I've actually seen some of his comments, and it's sad, It's someone that thought similar to me that could be on the same path as us, as people that maybe watch this channel. They're very small people that watch this channel. And think and are learning and thinking about what they can actually do in this horrendous time. But it's a time that has existed and hopefully will not exist later, but has existed for a long time. And if we actually want to be effective, we've got to change the way we think about things. Because throwing your life away like that, I just think it's such a waste. I respect and mourn that person and everyone that does something like that. But I just know there could have been so much more well placed if he just quit his job, or even stayed in that job and organized genuinely with a core group and actually did what needed to be done. Because this is not what needed to be done. This will get washed over really quickly, and he'll remain in the hearts of a lot of people, but there's just so much. I just think there's so much more that could have been done. The Palestinian Liberation Movement, the Tamil Elam Liberation Movement, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, the global Indigenous peoples, we are not going anywhere. Don't let anybody trick you into thinking that your life is a plaything and that burning yourself out on ill-conceived actions that harm you physically, impair your freedom, and put unnecessary attention on your loved ones is the thing you should be doing. Because you should be organizing, we should be thinking twice as hard and planning twice as hard. Planning is not weakness. Planning can seem like you are focused on inaction, but if that inaction leads to disastrous outcomes, you really got to analyze what went wrong and genuinely take steps to mold that behavior that we want to do that will actually counter fascism. That's really, really important if we want to win. It's really, really important if we want to win. So if we want to see a better world for ourselves and the generations after, then we need to mourn the dead and fight like hell for the living.